Media mogul Rupert Murdoch is set to expand his empire again after winning the all-clear to take over satellite broadcaster BSkyB. The British government approved the bid after News Corporation agreed to spin off its Sky News channel. The deal could be worth as much as $16 billion, and it's got Mr Murdoch's media rivals crying foul. Europe correspondent Emma Alberici reports.
With the launch of Sky News, Britain had its first 24-hour news service. Now it's the channel itself that's making headlines.
Getting the green light, the Culture Secretary says News Corp can take over BSkyB.
The parent company, BSkyB, is already part-owned by Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation. The British government has now given the nod for it to buy the rest, as long as it agrees to spin off Sky News into a separately listed public company.
There's been a widespread campaign to urge him to refer the issue to the Competition Commission. I think there's 250,000 people signed this petition. Over 100,000 now have written to him. He's ignored all that. He's ignored the original Ofcom recommendations, and he's handed over, well, effectively, near monopoly control of our British media in the long term to Rupert Murdoch.
5 rival media groups, including telecoms giant BT, The Guardian and The Telegraph, are equally outraged by the deal. They say it's a whitewash and are planning a legal challenge against the government's decision.
The question is whether this deal tips the balance in a way which is unacceptable in terms of our democracy.
Others are raising questions about just how close Rupert Murdoch has become to the ruling coalition since his biggest-selling newspaper, The Sun, publicly backed David Cameron during last year's election.
It's precisely because of the concerns that people express about politicians being involved in this process that I have sought and published independent advice at every stage of the process, even when I didn't have to. This is a deal which means that James Murdoch, Rupert Murdoch, will have less control over news media in this country.
Rupert Murdoch turns 80 next week, but his ambition for the company he started in Adelaide almost 60 years ago shows no sign of slowing.
News Corporation is already the UK's dominant commercial media player. It owns 4 of the biggest-selling newspapers, and even though the government is making it hive off Sky News, it will still be allowed to retain a 39% stake in the pay TV channel.
News Corp will be able to apply to increase that shareholding after 10 years, during which time it will fund the broadcaster to ensure its viability. The terms of the BSkyB takeover will now be the subject of a 15-day public consultation period. Emma Alberici, Lateline.